Welcome back to Sports Talk on the Sports Talk Media Network. You can reach the guys with the South Carolina Education Lottery lucky number, 888-898-2525. That's 888-898-2525. Now back to Phil and Chris with the second hour of Sports Talk on the Sports Talk Media Network.
Back we are, Sports Talk Media Network on a Monday night. Very, very busy. We'll get back to more phone calls in a few minutes. We got recruiting coming up. Jim Toman just a bit outside. Second game of the CWS today about to get underway. Winner's bracket game between Kentucky and Texas A&M. Already saw NC State sent home today by Florida. A good one, 5-4. Of course, over the weekend we had the completion of a dramatic, could say dynamic, U.S. Open. What a finish. It came down head-to-head matchup between Bryson DeChambeau, Rory McIlroy. I think a lot of people were, maybe, I don't know, let's bring in MJ Ward, who was there, as he wraps it up for us. Welcome in, MJ. It's great to have you back with us again for a few minutes. And I don't know, I think America, they love Rory because of his swagger, and his long-running championship heritage. They love DeChambeau because he's kind of the new kid on the block, relatively speaking, and he's and he's very energetic and demonstrative out there now. So I guess you had plenty of people pulling for both of them. But what'd you make of those final holes and the way DeChambeau was able to win his second?
Well, I think the main thing is what you saw yesterday was finishing off major championships. That is what separates the very good from the really elite players. When you hear the names of Nicklaus and Woods and people like that, they were able to finish off tournaments. You just can't bogey 3 of the last 4 holes. You can't miss a 2.5-foot putt on the 70th hole and then miss less than a 4-foot putt on the 72nd hole. If Rory makes both of those putts, it's a different situation. If he makes one of the 2 putts, he's at probably minimum in a playoff, and he could probably still win anyway. But the bottom line of it all, he got into the mix by birdieing a number of holes in the middle of the round. It looked like it was his tournament. But, Phil, I got to say this, okay? I've seen major championships for many, many years. Sometimes it's a combination of you giving it away and the other guy playing well. In this case, it was both. But you got to tip your hat to Bryson for one thing, a 55-yard bunker shot when everything is on the line. I mean, we are talking about a shot that most pros, forget the average, weekend player, most pros would not want to have a situation like that in front of them. He played the shot of his life, which is obvious in what he said. But, I feel for Rory, but it's going to go one of 2 ways for him. Either this is going to break him or he's going to come back from this. We shall see. But I will say this. There's no guarantee, Phil, when you're in your 30s that more major championships are going to come. Arnold won his 4th Masters and 7th major at 34. Everybody said, well, there's going to be more majors. None of them ever came. Seve was 32 when he won his 5th major at Lytham in the Open Championship. And everybody said, well, there's going to be more chances, more opportunities. Sometimes the spigot just goes dry. And, in the case of Rory, I hate to say this, but, he's a Hall of Famer, Phil, no matter how you slice or dice it. I mean, he doesn't hit another golf shot for the rest of his life. He's in the World Golf Hall of Fame. Okay, he's got 4 major championships. But the storyline is when you win 4 by the age of 25 and people start comparing you to Nicklaus and Woods, you then have to say, what happens here? Okay, I mean, what has taken place here? Hard to explain. I'm a Rory fan, but you have to put away tournaments when they're at the doorstep like that yesterday. Would you think Tiger would miss those putts? Do you think Jack would miss those putts? And the answer everybody would say is, well, no, they don't. Well, this is a tough one to swallow. As bad as it was when he lost to Cameron Smith at the Open Championship a few years ago, this one is right at the top. I can't see how it could be. You can't take away what Bryson did. He is the U.S. Open champion. He played the most tremendous shots to recover throughout the day just to stay in this thing. and he did the thing he had to do on 18 when the situation presented itself.
Well, I mean, of course he led the field in driving, yards per drive, obviously, but he also missed a bunch of fairways. He was 66th in fairways reached, yet he made up for it with his short game, 10th in putting. His short game, I guess, and you mentioned the 55-yard bunker shot, which was incredible, and his recovery from the tree and the root and the sand there on 18 was impressive as well. You think his short game and his touch is somewhat overlooked because he's such a power guy?
Yeah, I mean, I think the media has a tendency more than anybody else because they'll obviously highlight all of the stuff that he's done in the past, the weightlifting, the training, and all the other stuff. When you're at the world elite level, you have to have a consummate game. I mean, he won the U.S. Open at Wingfoot, which is by no means a second banana golf course. So he demonstrated a lot of composure. I think a lot of people don't realize this. I mean, it's obvious because you watch it on television. There's no timeouts in golf. You don't have, the coaching staff that pulls everybody aside and says, well, let's figure this out. You're in real time. You've got your caddy, and that's all you've got. And you've got to pull it together so that you can somehow manufacture a shot. And, Rory put himself in a great position. He was running the table with some really key birdies. But I got to say this, in all hindsight, it's 50-50 now. When you know how tough those last 4 holes are at Pinehurst number 2, Rory has got to be thinking, if I can just par to the house, this is over because I can't see Bryson birdieing to win. Now, of course, that didn't happen, but the bottom line of it is you can't bogey 3 of the last 4 holes. Okay, no champion in a tight match of that sort can allow that to happen. It's just inexplicable. And the worst part about it, Phil, you can't just go run to your car and just take off. You have to face the music, okay? I mean, Jack and Arnold lost tournaments that were really tough on them all the time, okay? I mean, Jack and Arnold, that's your benchmark. Now, I know Rory came out with a statement. He didn't say he apologized for his actions, but it really was something he needed to do, even for 5 or 10 minutes. Just step in, make a statement, handle maybe 3-4 key questions, and then you move on. But you just cannot bolt to your car and say adios amigo and then wait a day later. I'm sure his agent probably said to him, you got to say something. You can't let this sit because the longer this sits, when you do resurface at the Scottish Open, you can be sure you will be hammered with these questions. Now, they're still going to get asked. But Rory, I think if he was thinking through this, and it's hard, Phil, because I've never been in that moment where I would lose a U.S. Open. I'd probably do maybe the same thing he did. Okay, we all would probably. But you have to be able to face the music. That's what the great champions do. This is going to make or break him, Phil. This is one of those moments in a career where you either really learn from this, and hopefully that happens at Royal Troon in the Open Championship, but it could also be a situation in which he's going to go through these moments again. There's going to be a time when he comes to the 70th hole or the 69th hole or the 72nd hole, and he's going to face these things. And you know what? Greg Norman faced them. He was never able to overcome them. It just never happened for him. I'd hate to say this, Phil, but Rory at 25 was on a pathway. 4 major championships. Only Jack and Tiger had done that by 25. If he doesn't win another one, it's possible that he could be the greatest underachiever that we've ever seen in pro golf, given the talent and given what he achieved so fast. It's possible, but we have a lot to see yet with him. I mean, his career is not over, and we shall see what happens when we get to Troon.
And he's pulled out of this week's PGA event, so obviously he's getting the heck out of Dodge, and not showing up for the press conference afterwards, and not taking the questions and owning up. That's so much not like him, and I'm a little surprised that there was nobody there at the USGA who could have made him show up. But I guess you can't make these guys do what they don't want to do. This is interesting. My friend Tim Beret, don't know if you know Tim, long time at Clemson, now he still works at Clemson, but he works for NBC. He's up in the tower. He's been listening to us. Hey, Tim. He was there working for NBC. He said, and Tim, of course, huge on the stats. He said Rory had made 496 or 496 putts inside of 3 feet before he missed on 16. DeChambeau was only player in the entire tournament to get up and down out of that front bunker on 18. Thank you, Tim.
That's amazing.
That's great stuff, man. Great stuff. He'd made 496 consecutive putts inside of 3 feet before missing.
Well, I mean, Phil, closing out major championships, whether it's a 3-foot putt or any other type of shot, that is the ultimate test when the pressure is at its highest. When we saw yesterday, Bryson was not driving the ball really well at all yesterday. He was very fortunate that he didn't get hit harder by going into the native areas. It finally caught up to him at the 14th hole, and then you saw it at the 18th hole when he had the root next to his golf ball. So, he stayed in touch with the leaders. And, a lot of people don't realize this. The 3-wood that he played into the 13th hole, the par 4, where he had to birdie, was a tremendous golf shot. Knowing that Rory was now starting to pull away, Bryson had to make some kind of counterattack, and he did that. And, to his credit, he held himself together because there was a lot of circumstances between when Rory took the lead where Bryson could have lost it. He could have just fell out of it. And then Rory could have won the tournament even by missing the putts that he missed. But at the end of the day, this is going to be a tough one. I've seen a lot of things in championship golf, whether it was Greg Norman's folding to Nick Faldo at the 96 Masters. There's been other events where you've seen guys lose stuff at the end. But a player of Rory's talent, 4 major championships, I don't think I've ever seen a player of that caliber come unglued with the way that he did in the final 3 holes. This one goes in the books for me. I've never seen a player of that stature. Keep in mind, Phil, this guy's played in 62 majors. He's had 31 top 10s and 18 top 5s. So this guy's been really consistent. The only problem, he doesn't have the W's to go with it.
MJ Ward with us here tonight on Sports Talk to recap the United States Golf Open. And with that in the books, MJ, we've got the United States Olympic golf team set. It will include, of course, Scotty Scheffler along with Xander Schauffele and then Wyndham Clark and Colin Morikawa. Bryson DeChambeau unable to make the team because he's playing on the LIV Tour, and a lot of things go into that in terms of the rankings. Do you foresee a scenario, because let's face it, Bryson DeChambeau should be on before Wyndham Clark is, especially the way he's playing right now. But do you foresee a scenario, if we're still split tours like we are right now in 4 years, that they will make a concession to allow a red-hot LIV Golf Tour player play on the United States Olympic team?
Well, and to answer, to speak to your point, I'm always of the belief that you go at your best, whatever your best is. So if it's the LIV Tour or if he was playing the Martian Tour, I don't care what tour he's on. Okay, at the end of the day, you go with your best. And yes, there's a lot of political questions that tie into LIV, but when we look at pure talent, you have to say yes. Bryson is ahead of Wyndham Clark, no question about it. He's got the best record in the majors this year. It was his second U.S. Open. There's a quote that was stated not too many years back, but was stated by a famous golfer called Walter Hagen. A lot of people can win 1 U.S. Open. Very few win 2. He's the 23rd person to now have 2 U.S. Opens, and he's only joining the likes of Bob Jones, Nicklaus, and Woods, who have won U.S. Amateurs and multiple Opens. So when you start putting your name in that kind of listing, then you certainly deserve to be on the USA Olympic team. I think if there is no change to that, that would be a total unfairness, not only to Bryson, but to whoever else comes down the line. You want your best to be at the Olympic Games, and then at that point, that would be the USA team.
All right, last thing, we'll let you roll till we talk to you from where's the Open this year? Where are they going?
At Royal Troon in Scotland.
Okay. Sounds like fun. We ended up with only 8 golfers in red numbers. So you think the folks at the USGA with the winning score -6 and only 7 others under par, you feel like they're sitting in there in the office today going, Nice job, Pinehurst #2, mission accomplished.
Yeah, I mean, I think the major storyline that came out of Pinehurst was how much precision needs to be a part of championship golf, because power has become the dominant element in so many of these tournaments. Okay, I mean, if you looked at the club selection that Bryson had, I mean, he must have had an 8 or 9 iron into that 540-yard par 4 16th hole. I mean, it was a show to see how far down he was. But here's the deal: you have to be precise, and you have to make sure that your iron play is the way it's supposed to be. You know, you have to tip your hat to both Pinehurst, to the team of people that set the golf course up. John Bodenhammer is their championship officer, to the whole team at the USGA. They have taken major hits over the past in terms of how they've set things up, but this was a home run. I mean, this Pinehurst #2 is really the epitome of Donald Ross design. I think it's a great venue. It's going to be great hopefully in the years to come when they come back to Pinehurst. And I think the way the golf course was set up, it separated the players who were possible contenders into those who could really play. And then you look at the end game. The two men who came down the stretch, they were the two best players. They separated themselves from the field. And I think, on balance, it was a fantastic championship. It's one of the best U.S. Opens I've ever seen. I've covered 35 of them. And I will tell you that not all of them have been this great, but to see it come down to that bunker shot and to realize what's at stake here, I mean, if anybody was not on the edge of your seat at that point, then I don't know if you got blood in your veins, because it was tremendous. I mean, it was a tremendous championship. Hats off to the USGA. Next year it'll be at Oakmont, one of the real great tests in golf, not only here but globally. And so I hope to see it in that kind of context, how they set the golf course up. But Bryson DeChambeau, tip your hat to this guy. When he came on tour, Phil, real fast before I know you got to run.
Yeah.
This guy was a totally different type of personality. I mean, he was not the guy you'd be rooting for. And the way he demonstrated himself, the connection to fans, he's what golf needs. Golf needs people like that. He reminds me in certain ways of the swagger that Arnold had, and certainly of the charisma that Seve had. He has that capability to make people look at golf in a different way. And it's something that golf needs now, because Tiger and Phil are no longer, part of the scene anymore. So we'll see what happens. Troon will be interesting to see on a lot of different levels.
All right, real quick, because another important aspect to make golf extremely popular, besides a dominant player like Woods, is a rivalry. And DeChambeau and Koepka kind of had something going there for a while. Koepka's kind of maybe faded a little bit here at this particular time, but there's still Rory and some of these other great players. Where do you see a rivalry blooming for DeChambeau moving forward?
Well, I think the guy who took it the worst on the chin because of the expectations is Scotty Scheffler. I mean, Scotty had a lot of momentum coming out of Memorial coming into this, and he was gracious in spending time on television answering questions that normally he doesn't answer, because usually he's in the lead in tournaments. So he was a non-entity. But I think one of the things that you'll see from Scheffler coming forward, he's going to really refocus and really dedicate himself to being prepared for major championships. It just so happened that Jack's event, sadly this year on the schedule, was the week before the U.S. Open. And I think going forward, there's going to be some schedule changes possibly coming down the line. Scheffler cannot be put out of the mix for obvious reasons. I mean, it was hard to imagine that Scotty would only have, 4 birdies or 5 birdies for the duration of 72 holes. He averages 5 per 18 holes. So I think he'll be back in the mix, certainly. I think Xander has certainly opened the door where he can possibly get back in. And, there's a whole list of other players. Probably Colin Morikawa is another one that comes to mind. But DeChambeau is what golf really needs. They need somebody to light up the fan base, get people excited about seeing someone the way he plays. I mean, every time he steps up to the ball, Phil, you have no idea what's going to happen. So you have to keep an eye on what goes on. In so many ways, he reminds me of what Seve was like, certainly what Arnold was capable of doing. Even if he loses, it's exciting. And in this particular case, he won. But I do think now the ultimate pressure is going to only intensify on Rory's back to get a 5th major. I can only imagine the preparation that he's going to prepare himself for. He made a smart move in not going to Travelers. That would have just been – it just would not have worked. I think that was a smart call. He is a defending champion at the Scottish Open, and he'll play, obviously, in the Open Championship. So he has time to get himself back together and get acclimated to links golf. I'd be surprised if DeChambeau does not make it a point to get himself prepared, and so will Scotty for the last major championship. It's going to be really dynamic to see how this all sorts out when they go to the Open Championship, golf's oldest major.
MJ, marvelous stuff as always. We appreciate you. Take care. Talk to you in a few weeks.
Guys, enjoy yourselves. Always the best. And like I said, it's hats off to the Carolinas. One of the greats was played this year at Pinehurst.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks,
Great hearing
MJ.
from you. All right, MJ Ward, who, of course, is our international golf correspondent, but writes for Golf Today out of the United Kingdom and does several other media-type jobs. So we thank him for being with us when he can at tournaments and also here regularly on the show.